Hi, Charlie. I think you're on mute.
Hello, how you doing? How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Good to see you're still in scrubs day to day.
So is everything okay down your way?
It's all right, yeah.
Much as it is.
It's mad, but it is what it is, yeah.
Hi, David.
Hi, hello.
Hello to both. How are you?
Fine.
Good.
Fine.
I don't understand where all the GPs have went the last year and a half. I can see why people would feel like that. Yeah, we haven't been very visible. We've felt that ourselves. We felt that it wasn't very apparent what we were doing. We've missed being more visible and being in touch with our patients more. Our job changed completely in the last 12 months, 18 months. It made changes every day.
I suppose I can understand your frustration thinking that we've not been so visible. I think often people think that the surgery has been shut and the GPs have been going home. To be honest, I think my family would wonder where I have been then.
Yes.
Because I've spent long hours here. I suppose at the beginning of the pandemic, we changed completely on advice from government, really, in public health, in order to protect the very vulnerable and elderly. And for that, we were asked to, I suppose, close our doors and remove more to sort of remote telephone and video consulting, really for safety, which I suppose felt very different to us as well, and we felt a wee bit uncomfortable with this, although we've used the phone for some time, and I can sort of understand not being able to just pop in and see us has been very difficult for people. Certainly, as a GP working through the pandemic, and I'm sure yourselves as well, I would say that, you know, we have been exceptionally busy. I've continued to visit people. I've continued to have very extensive telephone triage clinics. We've continued to examine people more in a sort of clinical need, but a lot of things have been dealt with on the telephone.
Yeah, I would agree. I think possibly what people see is empty waiting rooms. With one or two people in, and they may be aware that there are 3, 4, 5 doctors in, and it's really understandable that the question, what have you guys been doing? And I think, as previously mentioned, been such a massive change of life for everybody, absolutely everybody, and GPs included. Telephone work actually often takes longer. A telephone consult will often take longer than a face-to-face consultation, because you don't have the visual cues that you get when somebody's in your room. And although initially I think we probably did have less direct clinical work to do, we certainly have much more than we did previously, and what we do does take longer. I think moving forward, people will generally see waiting rooms that are much quieter, because we can't really, even after the pandemic, I don't think we can go back to bulging full waiting rooms with people with coughs and colds mixing with people coming in for their chemotherapy bloods. So it's changed, and I think it's for good, and we just need to find ways going forward, and listening to our patients, of course, as to how we do that in a way that benefits everybody.
It's interesting. I think it probably, I've been a GP now for quite a number of years. You possibly have been a GP longer, but I don't think I have ever been as busy as I am now. and on a daily basis, demand outstrips capacity. Okay, so the next sort of question is, a friend of mine who's elderly and heart problems fell and cut head really badly, and when she contacted her surgery, they refused to see her. That is not what I call supporting patients. I don't know what you think, Charlie or David.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, and again, this happening to somebody or happening to your friend will automatically make you feel angry towards the service, potentially make you feel that you've been let down, and clearly we really don't like to create that feeling in people, and we feel very sorry for that.
Mm-hmm.
Things have changed in primary care, and the old days where you could just drop into the GP surgery or somebody would pop out and do a home visit, these, sadly, maybe these things don't happen in that way nowadays. And whereas previously there would be the GP and maybe a nurse, nowadays we work in much bigger teams. And everybody has a role, I suppose, in the team. Now, in this particular instance, it's hard to say, whose responsibility this was. It may be that the practice didn't have a minor injuries capacity or the ability to deal with such a thing, and we would rely on another part of the service, the ambulance service, I would guess, to support us in this. But yeah, feedback is important, and I think practices would like to hear from patients if they feel something, something is not been right, and let us try and explain it, or let us try and put it right. If it's something failing in our systems, then we want to know about that so that we can prevent that from happening in the future. I had an appointment with a nurse practitioner. She told me she didn't have time to listen to my ailments, so I guess I have to wait until COVID moves over and hope to God it's not too late. Yeah, that sounds as if you had quite a difficult consultation with the nurse practitioner, and that's really unfortunate. And clearly, when you feel you haven't been listened to, then that is very frustrating and very unpleasant. Time is often limited in consultations, and we do essentially give ourselves enough time mainly to deal with one issue, and then another patient will be potentially booked into the next slot, and we end up running way behind time, running late, causing issues for other patients if we then try and tackle absolutely everything in one go. I think in that instance, sometimes it's useful to say at the start of a consultation, say, well, I want to talk about this, and this, and this, and together with the practitioner you're seeing, you can maybe plan whether actually that's something you can do all in one go, or whether maybe that's something that you pick the most important thing for today and we make an appointment or make arrangements to deal with the other things at another time. But yeah, I can really understand that frustration.
I would agree. It sounds like it's been a frustrating consultation, and I can imagine that from both sides in a way, because I would imagine the AMP was probably a bit flustered or frustrated, and I would want to know if I had given somebody that impression. I would want to find out about it and be able to talk about it. Because that's a message sometimes that we do need to get across, is that I can't quite do it all today, and I would love to learn how to do that in a way that patients find satisfactory. Because the reason we do that is to keep it safe, isn't it? It's so that we don't take on 6 different jobs and only do 2 of them properly and make a muck up with the other 4. And so I would say definitely feed that back to your surgery, and let them address it. And I think we'll all learn from it.
I mean, I think we've got to be honest with the time available.
Yes.
When you see, you know, yourself with all your problems. You know, pre-pandemic, before the COVID pandemic, we had 10 minutes per patient. In that time, we had to get them from the waiting room to the room. We had to go through all of, you know, your ailments. We tried to address what you came with. Plus there's documentation afterwards, and all that was 10 minutes. Now, what I would tend to do is I would put on your watch, and then you can work out at 10 minutes. It's a lot faster than you think. During the pandemic, we've tried to give ourselves a bit more time because we need to, you know, thorough cleaning, PPE on. I suspect, reading between the lines, although obviously we don't know the ins and outs of this, possibly the nurse practitioner was seeing you more as an emergency thing on the day. Obviously, with anything, if you think some of your ailments haven't been addressed, I would suggest that you make an appointment back to see them. If there's something you're worried about, make an appointment back. You should never go away feeling unsatisfied. You know, if there is something, speak to the person again. And I think, you know, obviously you're concerned that it's something more sinister because you're saying, hope to God it's not too late. I think if you have grave concerns like that, then you should be contacting your surgery again. So.
Righty takes those. I've had 2 face-to-face appointments at Georgetown Medical Practice in the past 6 months, plus the telephone chats, no problems. The receptionists were able to answer questions on some minor issues. That sounds great. That sounds good. Yeah, good. That sounds like good service. I hope that person is satisfied.
I suppose it kind of summarises that I think often we get very negative feedback, and actually we also get a lot of positive feedback, but unfortunately sometimes it's drowned out by the negative comments. Sometimes, you know, possibly justified, but a lot of the time unjustified, and sometimes the negative comments actually have quite a detrimental effect to the morale of already exhausted, hard-working workforce. And actually, sometimes it's lovely to get positive feedback and to actually say, well, actually, I did get good access to healthcare, and I actually love to see people saying that they've been helped out over this time, because certainly, I'm sure Charlotte and David are the same. We've helped out a lot of people over the pandemic, and it's just really nice to get positive feedback. Okay, the next one is, it's the flaming e-consult form I hate. Then it tells you to call 999 when you need, all you need to do is have a quick chat with the doc. You have to go back and forwards, filling in the rubbish just to get to the end. Sorry, I'm sort of laughing a little bit because there is lots of things to fill out for the e-consult before you get there. Some surgeries are using e-consult and continue to use e-consult. Some surgeries have used e-consult and decided to put it on hold just now during the pandemic. If it's not, I know some surgeries, I'm not sure if you always have to go through e-consult. Lots of people love e-consult because they can very much get advice from a doctor very easily, very quickly. They can send photographs, they can, you know, e-consult for the surgeries who don't use it, and for the doctors who haven't, are not so familiar with it. It's where a patient can sit at home and log on to e-consult, and basically through sort of email fill in all their details, possibly send photographs of what's wrong, and the surgery will deal with it within I think it's 24 hours. I think it has its place, but it's maybe not for everyone.
Yeah, I would add to that, and I really get it, because I've looked through some of the e-consult templates. So as you go into e-consult, which is easy to find on the internet, usually on your practice website, you're asked what type of condition it is, essentially, that you want to report, and you have all these choices of different forms to fill in, and some of them are very complex. There is always the option of the simple form, which is the admin request. And actually, that's a very, very quick form that you just fill in very, very rapidly with a bit of free text. So that's an option for people who feel that their condition doesn't necessarily fit the templates that are on offer. I would say, however, that the information that eConsult gives us is really valuable, and it really helps us to focus on what are the problems. And I've also had feedback from patients who you know, like yourself, are critical of the complexity of the forms, but also have said, well, actually being forced to think about my condition and to go through the different forms has really formulated what the problems are in my own mind. So I actually found that process quite helpful as well. So yes, pros and cons. We completely recognise it's not for everybody. Not everybody has access to a computer, and but it potentially does have a place. But there is a form to fill in if you don't like the longer.
That question makes me sad.
Okay, I'll read this one out if you like. When GP practices go back to normal working, seeing people face to face, that would take some pressure off A&E. That would take some pressure off A&E, surely.
I wish we could turn a switch, eh? But I think it would have to go back 10 years, not 2.
So I guess the difficulty here is what is normal.
What is normal?
And I suspect that GP probably won't go back to how it was previously, but we want to really try and make that better than it was.
Yes.
Along with COVID happening at the same time has been the introduction of all these additional services into primary care. This was happening before COVID, and it continues to build. So we have, you know, pharmacists, physiotherapists, mental health workers, etc., based in practices, and that really changes general practice into something that, like it did previously. So it's not going to look like it did beforehand, partly because it's changing anyway. We've also learned so much in this. Patients have been incredibly resilient. Particularly for the first part of the pandemic, just managing to get on and deal with things and you know, sort it out for themselves. As we've moved through the pandemic, we've recognised that doing things in different ways can sometimes be helpful, and lots more telephone work makes us much more accessible. So instead of phoning up and saying, I need an appointment with the doctor, and you might not get that for a week or 10 days, you get a phone back that day from the nurse or the doctor, and your problem could be solved right there and then, or it could be then organised for you to have a face-to-face appointment if that's needed, or a referral, or etc., etc. So it does actually, normal will hopefully be much more responsive, involving lots and lots of other people.
I would add that I think COVID's taught us that we can change, and we can change really quickly if we need to, and that has that's made us find skills as doctors that we didn't know we have. So when people talk to us, I hope we'll now be able to respond to what our patients need much quicker. You know, we'll be able to change the way we do stuff so that it suits us all better more quickly. So yeah, talk to us, tell us what might work, and we'll try.
I suppose in response, I think there's a few things. I think well, GPs go back to normal. I think GP practices probably have changed, as we've discussed. I think we have learned that we can do lots of things on the telephone, and there's a lot of satisfaction from a lot of people that they don't have to come to the surgery. We can do it, or they can use e-consult or email, or there's lots of different options which helps a lot of people who are working. Also, lots of people have found communication actually easier on the telephone. They don't want to come in with masks or whatever on. I suppose the second part, that when will we start seeing people face to face, this always sort of makes me laugh, because I've actually seen people face to face through it all, and I'm sure you two have as well. But it's been on a clinical need. So often you would take full history. If we feel we need to examine you, we will bring you in. Obviously, when you're seeing someone, a lot of the diagnosis is helped by seeing somebody physically. And if we feel we need to see you, we will bring you in. As far as taking the pressure off A&E, I would hope that patients that would normally come and see me wouldn't be going to A&E anyway. It should be a different type of patient that's going to accident and emergency. And I think if you need to see a general practitioner, you should be making contact with the surgery. You shouldn't be attending A&E. Obviously, if you've got some sort of accident or an emergency, you should be going to the A&E department. And I think it's probably not appropriate really to turn up there. You will wait for hours and hours if you go up to be seen for something that a general practitioner could deal with. So hopefully that helps your question.
Nice to see you guys.
Nice to you. Bye.
Really good. Right. Take care. Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.